John started his day like he would of any other day, not knowing that today would be the worst day of his life. He and his coworkers would walk into the lair of what Indians refer to as a sieco, a malevolent spirit that watches over the forest and is extremely feared by the Apache tribe. The sieco marks its domain which it protects in brutal ways, at any cost. It worships the trees that it grows and nurtures them. Indian folklore claims that the trees that the sieco grows produces a special wood, hotter than any other tree and one of the most beautiful trees man can see. The tree was highly sought after by Native Americans for their characteristics of being able to produce the best spears and bows. John's Lumber Mill Company came across a sieco, and this is their story. It was a cool fall morning. A cold breeze blows against my face, giving me a refreshing feeling. A feeling that today we would break ground on an uncharted area. My crew and I have been harvesting trees on the east side of Steens Mountains for a week. But today is a huge day for us. We are getting into an area that, to everyone's knowledge, has never been commercially harvested ever. I'm a marker. An important job. It's more complicated than it sounds. My job is to mark the trees ahead of my crew, trees that will be cut down and harvested. Ethan and I both are markers. Several hours into our day, and it's been a good day so far at this point. All I can hear at this time is a faint sound of chainsaws and yelling coming from behind me. My crew hard at work. Silence seems to set in. A low growl comes from my stomach. Ah, it's break time. I love the quiet of the woods. Suddenly I'm caught off guard by such an amazing tree, so breathtaking, and I'm startled by this unusual mark on this tree. A mark that, after I look closer, it's engraved deep into the bark. It's a Z with a straight line down through the center of it, with markings on the end of each of the straight line. I'm overcome with joy just thinking of how much cash we will get from just this tree. John! John! Fuck Ethan! My heart almost burst out of my chest. He's never yelled for me before in 10 years. Shit, he must be hurt. I yell, Ethan! Ethan! No response from him at all. I start to sprint to where I believe the shouts came from. There Ethan stands motionless in almost a daze, and right in front of Ethan is this tree. Ethan turns to face me and is pale. Pale from being in shock, almost like he saw a ghost. He says nothing to me, only turns back around and points. It wasn't until then that I really looked at the tree he was standing in front of. A massive tree with a huge trunk, must be hundreds of years old, if not thousands. Hanging off the tree as if it were decorations are human skulls, most of them so tainted by time, withered away to almost nothing. That symbol, the same symbol as the one on the tree I saw earlier, is engraved in this tree, but thousands of times. The symbol is all different shapes and sizes, littered all over the tree, sometimes 20 feet above our heads. What was the most shocking was that right in front of us was a perfect hole cut in the tree, sanded, and I mean a perfect sphere, revealing another human skull. This one was unique in the fact that it had the symbol cut perfectly on the top of the skull, consuming the entire top. The skull was new. It seemed like it was just placed there yesterday. The eyes of the skull started to have a vague, eerie red glow form in the center. Slowly it becomes brighter, almost blindingly bright now. Panic gripped my body. Fear rushed over me, causing my knees to buckle, and goosebumps shot out all over me. Ethan threw up beside me from a mixture of awe and fear that suddenly engulfed us. We ran in the direction towards the crew, who was now in the area of these trees, sprinting, pushing ourselves to our limits, and pressing our bodies as hard as we can. I almost didn't even notice that Ethan was falling back, not able to keep up with him. I'm going to keep going. I'm so scared. I finally come up with the crew. Guys, you need to see this fucking tree up here. Calm the fuck down, says the foreman Zach, and his right-hand man Don says to me, yeah, chill out, mate. We will go with you. We start walking near that menacing tree, with leaving others to stay back and do some work. We are taken off guard when we hear ear-shattering, "No! Please, God, no! I'm sorry. We will stop. We will... Ethan is screaming for dear life. We start to run towards him. We see something. What the hell is that? A grotesque monster made of wood, sharpened twigs and branches protruding from its body. The wood it was made of seems to be held by nothing and moving effortlessly. Taller than a man, its bark stained with fresh blood, standing over Ethan with its leg on his chest. The sound of wood cracking, snapping, as this thing turns its head, revealing that skull with those evil, glowing eyes gazing at us now. This monster, this demon, looks directly at us. The jaws of the skull open, and it says to us in a deep, disturbing, scratchy voice, "A life for a life." Ethan now coughs up a glob of blood, and trying to speak, "Stop cutting the..." His sentence was interrupted as the wooden demon drives his hand into Ethan's chest, ripping out his still beating heart. In its hand, it then tears a piece of bark off its chest and places it inside the heart. Suddenly, the heart seems to take shape and change into something resembling a seed. A life for a life, I thought to myself. I am stuck there in disbelief, in awe of what just happened, unable to comprehend the fact that my friend was just murdered by whatever the hell this thing is. Pow, pow, pow! Zach starts to shoot at it with his pistol. It looks at us and points its arm towards us. Snap, crack, snap! Its arm turned to a sharp, pointy tip, and then thump. Zach was pinned to the tree by his shoulder, screaming in agony. I was trying to pull him off, catching a glimpse of Don running towards the monster, axe in hand. My adrenaline is surging through my veins. My stomach was turned upside down. I am torn between leaving my friend here and running for my life. As I froze there trying to decide, I noticed Don hacked off its arm somehow. The creature remained unfazed, swung its other arm, making contact at Don's head, knocking him unconscious. Shit! What the hell do I do? John! Zach! Finally, the rest of the guys came to our aid, axes in hand, charging blindly into the fray to help their friends out. They resembled warriors of old. Somehow they managed to overwhelm the monster, who already was missing an arm, and hack the creature to pieces. Relief washes over me. I am overjoyed with our victory. The skull rolls to the forest floor, eyes still glowing red. We rush to get Zach off the tree. He's lost so much blood and is unable to stand on his own. Don comes to his senses, stumbling around, barely able to stand, yet says, "What the fuck, guys? What the fuck was that?" A low hum started to drown out everything. It was originating from the skull. The skull starts to slowly roll back and forth, as twigs and branches started to pull in closer to the skull. The skull is now amassing a ridiculous amount of wood, snapping, twisting, forming, and shifting into a massive behemoth. It was 16 feet tall, vastly larger than its previous form, and at the center of the beast was that skull. None shall escape. A mouth formed with sharp teeth. Horns started coming out of the top of its head, spikes protruding from its body, arms that dangled to the creature's knees. It stands upright, showing us just how intimidating its body is. It lunged forward at the still delirious Don, grabbing him, holding him up in front of him, and bit his head off, threw the rest of his body behind him as if an emotion to represent to the creature is done with him. I stand, mouth ajaw, in shock, disbelief. This must not be real. It can't be real. I turn to run and boom, right into a tree. Sharp, stinging pain, a warm trickle of blood down on my forehead as I try to regain my wits. The remaining 2 members of our crew run towards the monster, hoping to somehow catch it off guard again and overpower it. James gets in a good hit to the creature's leg with his axe, embedding the axe deep into the wood. Unable to remove the axe in time, the monster seized its opportunity, and in a split second it turns its hand into a fist and brings it down on top of James. There was not much left of the man. Paul chucks his axe at the creature. The monster bats it away as if it was a toy. Paul starts to run, trips and falls. The hulking monster now stands over Paul, lurking over him. Picks up his leg and brings it down over Paul's legs. Paul screams in agony, "Oh my God, my legs! He broke my legs!" The monster turns to me and Zach now. "Shit! Shit! Stand up! Stand up!" The monster walks to us. At this point, I am crawling away. "You shall live, never return." The humming sound starts up again. I turned around to see what the hell was going on now. It started changing again. Now what? Now what the fuck's it doing? It took its original form, walking up to the helpless Paul, who is defenseless, can't do anything against this monster. The monster stands over him, thrusts his hand into Paul's chest, pulls out Paul's heart, and then takes a piece of his bark and puts it into the center of the heart. The heart changes, comes to life. It takes form of a seed. Zach is passed out from what I think is blood loss at this time. The creature comes over, stands over Zach. He looks at me and says, "A life for a life," as he rips Zach's heart out. "Go now." I turned and ran for my life, ran for everything I care about. I passed 3 trees that we cut down that day with that symbol etched into it. And that day, 3 hearts were turned into seeds. A life for a life.